Greetings, this is Willie Muhammad with National Network View. On tonight's show, joining me are guest commentators attorney Gavin Richard and Dr. Asad El-Malik, who will discuss the U.S. track and field star Sha'Carri Richardson's recent positive drug testing results and her temporary suspension. Later in the show, attorney Gavin Richard and Dr. Asad El-Malik will discuss Bill Cosby's release from prison after his guilty verdict was overturned. Lastly on the show, our guests will discuss pro basketball star and Hall of Fame star Scottie Pippen's charges of Phil Jackson being a racist. We're going to, before we get into those actual topics, we just want to do a recap on some current events that were covered by here on NNV News on last week. On I Have a Testimony show yesterday, my guest was Sister Medina Muhammad, and she shared her family's experience in the earlier years of the Nation of Islam, her mother's work as a secretary to Master Farad Muhammad, and the influences of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Sister was just about to share just how it feels just to know that her mother and her father actually worked with the Savior who's responsible for the Nation of Islam. Go ahead, Sister Medina.
Okay, yes, sir. It wows me. Sometimes you never know the blessing you have in front of you until it's gone. I've learned more about my mother since she's been gone. She passed in February of 2002. And since we have been blessed to do the exhibits since 2007 with my brothers and a couple of my sisters, and we've been blessed from 2007 all the way up to 2020 to do the exhibits. And the doors that it has opened up for us is tremendous. With Dr. Stacy Muhammad in that exhibit. Oh my God.
Our guest contributors on last week's Sha'Carri Richardson and Brother Lawrence Muhammad, they sat down with me to set the record straight about the criticism of actor Michael B. Jordan for referencing a Caribbean Emancipation Festival in the initial name of his forthcoming rum product.
Which one of you all will be able to give us a brief explanation of what cultural appropriation is?
Sure, I'll go for it.
Yes.
And, so basically, cultural appropriation is basically taking the culture of another people, their mores, the things that they do within their culture, and using it for self. And some definitions say without the approval of that particular culture. Some definitions also say those who are in power taken from those who are not in power, those who are quote unquote beneath them. And so taking their particular cultures, using it for their own culture and as their own culture, basically stealing from someone else. So it's different variations of that definition, but basically it's the same, taking from one culture and bringing to another and claiming it, for themselves.
Sha'Carri Richardson and Brother Lawrence Muhammad discussed the topic of West Point and white rage as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff defended the right of West Point students to discuss race.
What do you think is at the root of the white rage that has always been present in America, but is becoming more and more present during this time that is supposed to be this post-racial society?
Minister Farrakhan has talked about this, but I want to name Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, who has created the best definition of racism and white rage that I know of. And I think one of the things that's clear about what's happening is that certain white people understand that they are increasingly becoming a numerical minority in this country. And so there is a lot of fear really at the base of that. And so CRT, which, if we're going to be honest, is not being taught in K-12 schools, but it's a linchpin and a distraction, if you will, for the things that they really do want to enact.
Sha'Carri Richardson and Brother Lawrence Muhammad also shared their thoughts on India, Walton's recent Democratic primary win over the four-term mayor of Buffalo, New York, putting her on track where she became the first woman to lead New York's second largest city as a mayor.
What do you think about this historic victory of Sister India Walton?
Yeah, congratulations. Congratulations to the sister. I want to start a very positive. I understand politics, especially from the municipal level, because I have never run for office, but I've worked on campaigns, and I've been a part of understanding how the sausage is made, as a term that a lot of people use. And I will say that I think that it's good that she does have a worker and a working class focus. That's important. What I'm concerned about always, though, especially with politics now with Black leaders, is who is the hand behind the hand, right? Like who's actually controlling the system.
Rapper and lyricist Golden Child, a Chicago-based hip-hop artist, sat down with me on I Have a Testimony to share his personal experiences and his unique delivery of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the guidance of the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan through his music.
So how did you manage your practice of being a member of the Nation of Islam with growing up during your teenage years?
It was a challenge. It was a challenge. I won't lie to you, because you're young, right? You young. And I made a really, really big life-changing decision at the age of 16. And sometimes, a lot of the times, the decisions that we make around that age, aren't the best decisions, right? But I was blessed. I didn't really know. I felt that I was making the right decision. And as time went on, as I got older, I came into the realization that, I didn't just believe that I made the right decision. I knew that I made the right decision, as I continue to live life. But how I manage it, if we just going to be 100% honest, we're not going to pretend, we're not going to fake, we're not going to cap, as some people say. It was a challenge, right? I was an FOI, but I'm a human being, right? I make mistakes, right? We're not perfect. We sin. We go through our ups and downs. So I went through the same, in a lot of ways, the same challenges a young teenager go through, but it was different though. I went through the challenges with men around me, right? And women around me,
NFV anchor Naya Sai spoke with weekly contributor Charles Muhammad about how to eat to live and the importance of a healthy diet, understanding the caloric intake, and making healthy food choices.
But what would you say to those that strongly argue against any type of animal products?
Well, yes, you cannot argue with history. Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad does say, do not be a meat consumer. And what we just went over, a consumer eats other animals for energy. So we're not looking to gain our energy from animal products. But there's a doctor, he's no longer alive, named Dr. Weston A. Price. He was a dentist, ironically. And he traveled the whole entire world and studied what other people, other cultures ate, and particularly their traditional diets. And he wrote a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And he studied their teeth and their facial structure. And he said that when they ate a certain diet, they were very healthy. But when they got to eating more refined foods and Western foods, they had bad dental health and their faces began to narrow out, and said their jawlines were very narrow.
NFV contributor Tony Muhammad discussed the data analysis, concluding that Palo Alto Unified School District and schools across America have been improperly classifying Black and Hispanic students as having learning disabilities and over-identifying them for special education.
What factors might account for improper placement of Black and Brown students in special education?
Well, they arrived at the conclusions because the state investigated. And you have to understand that there was over 10% of the student population that was being labeled as being special education, if you will, or in need of special education intervention. And so that disproportionately affected the budget allocated to special education by the state. And so the state, got alarmed, said, okay, what's going on here? And so that was what propelled an investigation to take place. If I could share some statistics with all of you, because this is not just a problem in California, as the newsreel indicated, this is a national problem.
NNV News anchor Tariq X was joined by weekly contributor Nina Shabazz Muhammad and guest Andre Watley, who's a nutritionist and personal chef at the Dallas restaurant that is offering healthier food choices to combat the negative impacts in the living food deserts of living.
Are you reaching out or mentoring youth in your community, or do people come up to you and ask, how to get started and are, aspiring to do what you're doing?
I have a lot of people that ask me. It's a lot of young kids that's coming out of high school that wants to be an aspiring chef. So they normally would ask me if they can help me with donations or help me in the kitchen when I'm doing my meal preps, or come along with me when I'm doing my events. So if it's not them coming to me, then it's normally other leaders in the community reaching out to me to try to do a program where we be a big brother, or we do stuff with little kids in the community. So, and I love doing that. I never had a brother, so I don't mind being a big brother.
Tariq X and Nina Shabazz Muhammad questioned Chef Andre Watley about his career choice and how he has used his career to help change the lives of many in these very same communities.
You're doing catering, you're building your clientele, you have, word of mouth. And so how do you plan to keep yourself organized as you grow and you scale up?
So one is my financial coach. Her name is Elle. She's been doing a fantastic job with my funds and just trying to keep me focused and on path as far as with my money. Then also this, I never used this my entire life, but I started using it this year, and I write down everything as far as appointments and meal preps, so that way I won't get overbooked, and that way I won't have anxieties and panic because I'm all booked, because all books are a blessing. So as long as I keep booking and staying organized, I should be fine. So financial coach and a planner, write stuff down, because I never used to write stuff down.
So let us pause for announcements from our sponsors. And coming up, our guest commentators, attorney Gavin Richard and Dr. Asad El-Malik, will discuss the U.S. track and field star Sha'Carri Richardson's recent positive drug testing results and her temporary suspension. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people, and upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now, 502-219-4848.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
U.S. track sensation Sha'Carri Richardson, who punched her ticket to the Tokyo Games after winning the women's 100-meter race last month, has been suspended from the Olympic team after testing positive for THC, which is a chemical in marijuana. She has been suspended for a month, putting in doubt an appearance at the Tokyo Olympics.
After she tested positive for cannabis. Reports came out yesterday, and this means she could be facing a 30-day suspension after that test. Now, with that, she could still run the 4x1 relay, but could be disqualified from the 100-meter. They could definitely use her for the 4x1. She runs a 10.87. That's what she ran during the Olympic team trials in Oregon. Now, this tweet came after that report. She tweeted, "I am human," and a lot of people are speculating that she was responding to that test. Now, a lot of people are definitely having some mixed emotions about the test positive. One person basically saying that she just lost her mom a week before the trials, give her a break. Other people are saying they were really looking forward to her running.
So we're back, and we're here with our guest, Brother Attorney Gavin Richard and Dr. Asad El-Malik. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
And we'll get straight to this, because it's been on social media, and a lot of people have been debating both sides. So on social media, mainly black social media, which I'm a part of, are claiming that some are claiming that this failed drug test is a way to prevent black dominance in the Olympics. So my question, I'll start off with you, Brother Asad, then we'll go to Attorney Gavin Richard. Is this the case? Is it an attempt to stop black dominance in the Olympics, or is this just an example of a bad decision, which has caused somebody to miss out on an opportunity that they've worked hard for?
There's a scene from the movie Friday where Ice Cube's character Craig is upset with Smokey because they had just gotten into it with Big Worm, and he said, and Smokey tells Craig, "I didn't put that joint in your mouth and make you smoke," right? So is this a way of keeping black dominance out of the Olympics? I wouldn't go that far at all to say that. What I think it is a 21-year-old young adult made a mistake, who was attempting to cope with the death of her biological mother, and she should have had better people around her who would have given her the type of support, community support that she needed in order to cope with such a tragedy in her life. She made a mistake. She owned up to it. She was accountable for her actions, and I think that is something to be admired. And I think that she will be back soon, next 4 years, and we have not seen that since the Richardson.
Attorney Richard, what are your thoughts?
I think this is just an example of a 21-year-old girl who made a mistake. I don't necessarily think it's the Olympics trying to prevent black dominance, although I see other examples that are happening. For instance, the forbidding of the swim cap wear that's going on. They also banned 2 other sisters, I believe, because they said their testosterone levels were high. Yet they have a man participating in the women's weightlifting. So I don't know how they say too much testosterone, but yeah, if you have a penis, come on, you can come here. This is, I don't understand what example we're trying to set for children with all of this. If you're saying something is not allowed, you can't have this much, but you're allowing something else to push a particular agenda. Sha'Carri Richardson, I'll say this, she knew better. And you have to be mindful, especially as a black athlete, that people are always going to watch what you do. And I'm sure that she was aware of it, but just didn't care about it. And these agencies have had these rules in there for a long time. I mean, the U.S. Doping Agency, they lay it out that you're not supposed to be doing. It's just like in the NBA, even though it may be legal technically in some states, they still outlaw it in the NBA. People are saying, well, they need to get rid of it. Well, until they get rid of it, you still can't do it. You still cannot do it. And when you're a part of that, you subscribe to your employee, you subscribe to all of that. Now, I think that rules, can they change those? Yes. But remember, marijuana is still illegal in the federal authorities, 2 different jurisdictions.
Right. And so that leads to the next question. I'm seeing this, and you're seeing this a lot on social media, where people are saying, well, keep the same energy. They didn't do it to Michael Phelps. So I was with Brother Dr. Asad, will come to you. did Michael Phelps get a different treatment than Sister Sha'Carri Richardson?
Absolutely. He got a harsher treatment. In fact, he was suspended, I guess, more time. He lost endorsements. So I don't think that's the good argument to be made. I think, you know, people are grasping for straws when they reach out and try to use the Michael Phelps comparison, because if you actually examine the comparison, his punishment was much harsher, and he lost endorsements, whereas Sister Richardson, Nike announced they would stand by her and you know, be with her through the next 4 years. So if they're going to, I think Attorney Gavin brought up a good point. If you want to talk about the racism in the Olympics, we can talk about I believe where the Olympics this year, or
it's in Tokyo.
Tokyo, saying that Black Lives Matter shirts, or the banning of the swim caps for natural hairstyles. So those things are very race specific that we can point out to. Using Michael Phelps and juxtaposing the Phelps situation with Sister Richardson's situation is just not a good argument.
So, go ahead, Doctor.
I just want to reiterate too with Michael Phelps, when you say he got suspended. My understanding when he got caught with that marijuana bomb was after the Olympics had taken place. So it wasn't before. So that's why he didn't miss the 2012 Olympics. So though he lost his endorsement deals, and he had, as you pointed out, he did get a suspension. So.
And you brought up a point earlier, Attorney Richard, where you talked about the legalization of whether or not to legalize. In some states they have, in some states they haven't. So there are 19 states that have legalized marijuana for recreational purposes, and 36 states have legalized it for medical purposes. So in the light of this event, should America now no longer consider marijuana as an illegal substance in sports?
There's a difference between something being decriminalized and also something being permitted. Decriminalization versus permissive. When you say decriminalize marijuana in some states, they don't enforce it or enforce the laws. I know in some states, as you say, they approved it for recreational use. But like I said, that's to juxtapose the state versus the federal government. The state still, states may not outlaw it, but the feds still outlaw it. They may not they haven't decriminalized it, yet they still, it's still illegal, technically speaking. We still have laws on the books in our state here in Louisiana that still says marijuana is a controlled dangerous substance, Schedule 1. So I think that if we're going to talk about testing, whether they should remove the use of marijuana or not, like not testing for it, you know, it's something to be considered. But again, I do ask people who want marijuana legalized, and I'd have to ask the question, what else are we going to start legalizing after that? It's just a fair question. Do you think, you know, I just have to ask, is cocaine maybe legalized or heroin? I don't smoke marijuana. I don't do drugs, but other people, to each their own, they do that. But we got to determine where do we start, where do we stop at, where do we go to live with things.
So what do you say? Thank you, my brother. What do you say, Dr. Asad? Is it time now with this recent issue with the Olympics that, hey, is quote unquote not a performance enhancing drug? Should it be legalized all throughout America?
Absolutely, with 100%. And I'll go a step further to respond to Attorney Gavin. I believe that all drugs should be legalized. No one should be penalized for what they choose to put into their bodies. A lot of what we see associated with drug use is the criminalization of the drug itself. But here's what I want to point out about Sister Sha'Carri Richardson is that now she was trying to cope with a tragedy, with a loss, the stressor. My problem that I see is that in our community, and this is not just for Sister Richardson, but this is for all of us. When we are coping with stress or a tragic situation, we should not be turning to drugs and alcohol. That is the worst time to turn to drugs and alcohol. We should have a better conversation about mental health, about community support, about religious support, about family support. Because if she had these things in place, I doubt seriously that she would have turned to marijuana usage to kind of cope with the death of her her biological mother.
Hey, what are your thoughts, Attorney Richard? You want to say anything?
Well, I'm a criminal defense attorney, but I can't say myself, I can't agree with the doctor on legalizing every drug. I mean, cocaine and heroin are something dangerous that people can get in and die from an overdose. You know, we do have alcohol that's legalized, but we also have laws, especially where people who drive drunk or under the influence, if they kill somebody, there's a reason that statute is there. But I do think that I agree with the doctor on this standpoint that it was to cope with drugs, dealing with the loss of marijuana, dealing with the loss of a loved one. That's usually the worst thing to do. I wish that they should have some things available to these athletes where they're dealing with mental health issues. We have to talk about the mental health crisis in this country. That is something that's not dealt with, I think, not talked about by our politicians in general. They want to focus on guns and knives and all the other things that really are just tools. We're not focusing on the root of the problem. But this is a 21-year-old. I think she's going to learn her lesson from this, and she can come back. She hasn't, and interesting enough, the shocking thing is that she didn't lose her endorsements. Nike is still standing by her. I was shocked that happened.
It's a lot.
Tiger Woods lost his endorsements for just cheating on his wife.
Damn, well, that's interesting. Some people, that's interesting. So, as we get ready, we have 4 minutes before our next break. But I would like, as we wrap up this particular topic, what's the lesson that Black America, as well as Black youth, can take away from this actual incident? Starting with you, Dr. Asad, and we'll close out with Attorney Richard.
Oh, I think there are a couple of important lessons that we can learn from this. First of all, that we're all going to make mistakes, and that we all deserve grace and mercy. As we know in the Holy Quran, every surah of the Holy Quran besides one starts with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, God's grace and his mercy. So we should be showing mercy and grace to our sister for making a mistake. I also believe that the other lessons that we can learn as a community is that we must have a serious conversation about mental health, and in particular coping mechanisms that we use within our community. Drugs and alcohol are the worst things to use in terms of coping with stress and tragic or trauma-filled situations.
Thank you. Attorney Richard?
I think the main thing that kids can learn from this is that if you're having trouble coping with the death of a loved one, if you're depressed, if you suffer from anything, shape, or form, to try and reach out and seek help from an adult that you trust that would be there for you. I think that's the main lesson, that don't hold your stuff in, because when you hold it in, especially and it builds up more and more, it actually gets worse. So
I'll close. We have 2 more minutes before the break. And I saw Dr. Asad on your Facebook, you posted this, when you asked the question, you said that would it have been a different response if it would have been a Black male athlete? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I just one of those things, because sometimes we do see that there's a double standard in the way that the type of sympathy that's afforded to African American females versus African American males. So I wanted to know, and some people pointed out that there was Ben Johnson back in the day, who was accused several times of using illegal substances in the Olympics. And I reminded that individual that he was also vilified in the media. But then, we have had some people, and we'll be talking about it shortly, who some Black men who are given a lot of grace and mercy within our community, whether it's deserved or not.
And so what we're going to do with that, brother, so we're going to pause for announcements from our sponsors, and then we'll return and we'll talk about Bill Cosby's release from prison after this guilty verdict was overturned. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
So Bill Cosby was released from prison last Wednesday after Pennsylvania's highest court overturned the sexual assault conviction, saying that the disgraced actor's due process rights were violated. The stunning decision in the case of the man once known as America's Dad reverses the first high-profile celebrity criminal trial of the #MeToo era.
83-year-old actor was released yesterday after serving nearly 3 years in state prison. Now, the judges determined that Cosby should not have been prosecuted, but didn't weigh in on whether he's guilty. Our national correspondent, Jerika Duncan, spoke with Bill Cosby inside his home shortly after his release. And we should point out she was the only network TV correspondent allowed to do that. Jerika, how did this meeting come together, and what did he tell you?
Never should have been brought against Cosby.
Well, you know, Gail, it happened very, very quickly. We were taken inside the home. As soon as I walked in, I sort of waited there in the kitchen. Andrew Wyatt, which is Bill Cosby's publicist, he went upstairs to see if Mr. Cosby was interested in speaking with me. This is something we had asked about earlier in the day. We were not allowed to have any cameras. I didn't have my phones with me. I went up the stairs. I saw Mr. Cosby in his bed. He was wrapping up a phone conversation, and he briefly spoke to me for about 5 minutes. He was clearly excited to be home. He was overjoyed and said that he felt vindicated. Definitely, though, a different feeling for his many accusers.
So we're back, and if you've been on social media, this has been a very hot topic about Bill Cosby. And I'll start off with you, Attorney Gavin Richard, because on a previous show, you actually talked about this. So what are your thoughts about Bill Cosby's sexual assault conviction being overturned?
It shouldn't have happened in the beginning. I've been on your show platform many times. I've also talked about it on my platform. There was an agreement by the prosecutor, the original prosecutor, Bruce Castor, and that agreement was in writing. I believe he had sent emails and he communicated with Mr. Cosby's attorney at that time, who is deceased, that there would be no charges filed against Dr. Cosby. As a result of that, and Bruce Castor did not believe that the case, if it went to trial, that he was going to have a chance of winning, because he felt Andrea Constant, from the research that he had done and the lack of evidence thereof, there was not enough to go on. There was no probable cause, which is what a prosecutor is supposed to do. They administer justice, and they have to base it off of probable cause, not off political ambitions. 2 district attorneys come along, one who was a female who said that she would honor the agreement. Then the other one who comes along runs a campaign, that would be Kevin Steele, who runs a campaign on, if you vote for me, I'm going to lock up Bill Cosby, which he did. He ran in 2015 and won. And at the last hour, he filed the affidavit of charging Mr. Cosby before New Year's. In actuality, there are questions on whether or not that was even legal, because the statute of limitations, which are the period from when the wrongful act occurred, had expired. There were questions about that, and that was raised as a defense argument by Tom Mesereau in the second trial. This should not have happened. This was an illegal arrest and seizure. And those have to understand something. Whether you like Bill Cosby or not, it's not about whether you like him or not. It's about the rules being fair for everyone. Because Mr. Cosby has the means and monies to have an attorney or a team of attorneys find and discover which it was unfair due process being denied. And also finding that he did not get a fair and impartial trial. That was another thing. They didn't go into the prior bad act witnesses because they said that if the agreement was set from the beginning and Cosby relied on it, then it's moot to go even further into the trial. So that's why they decided to reverse the conviction. And if denial of due process, Brother Willie, is not a technicality, it's the law. And people have to understand that. Freddy Krueger getting off for not getting his Miranda rights read would be a technicality. Not notarizing a document could be a technicality. Denial of due process and having a prosecutor campaign on getting Bill Cosby, denying the use of a contract, an agreement that his office had, which Castor, by the way, sent emails telling them further in 2015, do not press charges, that agreement still stands. They ignored that. They did it to do it for political reasons. And honestly, this DA, Kevin Steele, should be disbarred. And I stand on that.
Thank you. And Doc, I want to, unless you wanted to touch on it, there's another question I wanted to ask you, but if you can add your thoughts on that after I ask you. Fellow actress Phylicia Rashad posted, finally, a terrible wrong has been righted, a miscarriage of justice is corrected. And as a result, Howard students, Howard alumni, another fellow actress, they all begin to start calling for her to be fired and expressing their disagreement with her statements. You know, should she be removed? And was she out of place for tweeting what she tweeted?
Well, I don't think what she tweeted was technically incorrect. He was, there was a miscarriage of justice because he gave up his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination under the auspices that he would not be charged with a crime later on. And that's the quote unquote technicality, as Brother Galvin pointed out, the due process of the law that actually got him out. However, as a strategic public relations move, I would have not tweeted anything and maybe have called Bill Cosby, congratulated him on coming home and welcomed him home. And, I just think that in the environment that we're in now, currently in the Me Too or present Me Too movement, and there's this very heightened awareness around sexual assault and sexual assault victims finally having their day to be heard. I just think it was not a wise decision to have that type of public support for Bill Cosby. And let me be clear on how I feel about Bill Cosby. There is Bill Cosby, the individual that we know publicly, America's dad, Heathcliff Huxtable. But I do not know the private Bill Cosby. I would not have looked at his image as America's dad and thought that he would have anything to do with offering people drugs or Quaaludes in the 70s, because that's not the image that I know. But that is the private Bill Cosby who has admitted that he did those things, not that he drugged women, but that he openly gave, that they willingly took Quaaludes from him. So I don't know who the private Bill Cosby is. I know who the public Bill Cosby is. And I think that these two things, I think that the entire thing is that people are unwilling to accept that this is a very complex situation, that Bill Cosby can have spent an entire career presenting a very wonderful image of Black people, of Black men, of the Black family, and at the same time have had very dark and sadistic ways.
What are your thoughts, Attorney Richard?
What did he do? If anybody reads the deposition, and I've read it in its entirety because the media cherry picks things, what he admitted to was something that was common in the 70s, which is that they had Quaaludes. It was a party drug. He had them for a prescription. He gave this to a particular woman, and I actually read her story. She gave it to People magazine, this Jane Doe. Her name was Teresa Serigny. She was a nursing student. She admitted she took the Quaalude. He didn't force it on her. She voluntarily took it. They ended up having sex. Now, she says she didn't know what happened. He says it's consensual. But then when you go and look at it further, she continued to even talk with the man. She even got money from him afterwards, even talking to him in the 90s. So What it sounds like is he had a relationship with some, I don't know all of the women, but from what I gathered, he had relationships with some of them. Even this woman admitted she continued to see Bill Cosby. I'm talking about Andrea Constant, who was the woman that he was standing trial for.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing, the court allowing these prior bad act witnesses. They let the testimony of Quaaludes in when the drug, Brother Willie, wasn't Quaaludes. It was Benadryl, which is over the counter. And that confused the jury. So that was another problem. So no one can honestly say exactly what he did. They just go off what CNN will put, where they say he admits to giving women Quaaludes, but they stop at the point of the deposition where Bill Cosby is asked, did you ever give it to him without their knowledge or involuntarily? And he said no. So it's important when we're talking about due process, when we're talking about whether he did something dark or not, we got to have the whole story and not cherry pick it. I don't know Bill Cosby either, but I know that he reverts back to his previous status. You are innocent until proven guilty. He admitted to having affairs, which is no different than John F. Kennedy or Frank Sinatra or Mick Jagger and any other of these celebrities that did drugs. You know, we talk about comedians. It was well known in the 70s. One of my favorite comedians of all time, Richard Pryor, he had cocaine laid in a soup bowl of cocaine at his house, and the girls would be doing drugs with him.
Right. I just think that Richard Pryor never presented himself as America's dad. Or the you follow what I'm saying? What I'm speaking of specifically is about the image that he portrayed, his public image versus his private life. Yes, I'm sure a lot of people in Hollywood do drugs. A lot of people in Hollywood cheat on their wives. I don't put anything past anyone in Hollywood, and that's why I will not say I don't know what Bill Cosby did, because I don't know the private Bill Cosby. I know the public Bill Cosby. I know the guy who gave $20 million to Howard. And again, so my point is that or $20 million to Spelman and gave money to Howard University or whatever have you. So there is a public image of Bill Cosby, and I think that's what's complicating the narrative. I don't know the private Bill Cosby. You don't know the private Bill Cosby. Brother Willie doesn't know. We can't say what he did or what he didn't do. I know this, that you say, well, people in Hollywood have been cheating on their wives or doing drugs. I don't cheat on my wife. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I don't do any alcohol. So so I'm not saying even that is problematic in terms of the public image that he portrayed. The public image he portrayed was, America's dad, a great husband, a person who promoted the respectability politics. I think we lost a brother. I don't know if he's back now, but pull your pants up and all good stuff.
Before this last,
I'm sorry.
Before this last break, let's give Brother Gavin an opportunity to respond before this last break.
I hear what you're saying, but Bill Cosby didn't call himself America's dad. We did. He was called that because his television show was the #1 show in America. He never said I'm a perfect person. And yes, he may have offered criticisms of young black men. And honestly, that's where I see a lot of people that don't like Bill Cosby or have animosity towards his guilt get that, because they focus on the pound cake speech and things that he had. But remember, Bill Cosby also gave over $100 million to historically black colleges and universities. His images that he portrayed helped to uplift black people. It does not mean he is a perfect person, like no one is. But even the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I remember when the pound cake speech came out, Minister Farrakhan defended Bill Cosby by it, because he, and this is what I respect about you brothers, is that he talks about personal responsibility all the time. Now, maybe the reason why Bill gets shot at and people don't like it is because we never saw Dr. Cosby come at white people, mainstream white America, the way that Minister Farrakhan would address that. But Bill Cosby, the man I have seen and things from people I know, there are also good things about him that we also focus on. And, like I said again, no, we don't know everything that happened because we weren't there. But as a lawyer, you're innocent till proven guilty.
And let me say this, and before we go, because I want to get this question as well, Dr. Asad, I'll ask you this. Does Bill Cosby's case show that wealth is needed to successfully fight prosecutorial misconduct, or even just to be successful in the courts?
Is it needed? I don't know. Does it help? Absolutely. It helps that you can pay lawyers to work for you around the clock. It helps that you can get some of the best lawyers and the best minds and the best experts to go and, do DNA analysis or do whatever kind of testing. So yeah, wealth helps. Money helps when you are, in the midst of a trial. However, is it needed? I go to court Monday through Thursday in my position, and I've seen many individuals with public defenders who have been able to make a case and get their case heard and walk out of the courtroom free people.
And we got 1 minute, Attorney Rashad. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, like the brother said, it does. That good doctor said it does help. But remember, I have to say this too, because people are saying that Bill Cosby's money bought him out. Well, he wouldn't have been in jail if his money meant anything from the beginning. He did 2.5 years in prison on something that should not have gone to trial. And keep in mind, he had a settlement agreement with this woman. She got over $3.6 million from this and became a millionaire. So it was settled. I will say this too. He certainly does have grounds for a lawsuit of some type against this prosecutor, against that county.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And thank you all for your comments about that. And what we're going to do, we're going to pause for announcements from our sponsors. And after the break, our contributors will share their thoughts on pro basketball star Scottie Pippen's accusations of Phil Jackson being a racist. We'll be back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Classes begin September 1st. To enroll, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline reads, "Severe weather lashes America." As hurricanes struck the south and tornadoes hit the Midwest region, droughts strangle western states as the forces of nature and the destructive force of weather punishes the United States. The divine judgment of God is intensifying in the country. This FCN volume number 39 edition middle page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is entitled, "God Has Come for the Black Man and Woman." To read more, subscribe to FinalCallDigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVNews.com Final Call cover report.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.
Hall of Fame forward Scottie Pippen accused former Phil Jackson, coach of Chicago Bulls, of racism last Monday. He doubled down on his earlier comments about an incident that took place in 1994 playoffs where Phil Jackson decided to allow Tony Kukoc to take the final shot.
I have no comments on that.
But the Bulls survived without Scottie. Tony Kukoc hit a 22-footer to win it for the Bulls. And later, Pippen admitted it was a well-called play by Jackson.
Well, I mean, it's not much to be said if you go back and look at when Scottie Pippen entered the Bulls and when Tony Kukoc entered the Bulls, and who deserved the last shot of the game.
No, I understand that, Scottie. I'm just going by what you said. You said you need to read between the fine lines, and then you go on to say it was a racial move to give him, Tony Kukoc, a rise. So,
well, I mean, if you knew that Scottie Pippen had been with the Bulls from '87, battled through the Pistons and every other team that we had to get to those 3 championships, wouldn't you give Scottie Pippen one opportunity to get a last-second shot without Michael Jordan? Like 1 year without Michael Jordan. Can I get one shot? Like, I'm doing all the dirty work.
but all of that I understand from the basketball standpoint. But when you say a racial move,
well, why would Tony, who was a rookie, get the last-second shot and you put me out of bounds?
And let's get straight to this. You know, we'll start with you, Dr. Asad, then we'll go to Attorney Richard. Man, do you think Pippen is right, or is just Pippen trying to sell books and his new alcohol that you see strategically placed right there?
Man, you got to move those units, brother. Look, you can't. It's capitalism, and controversy sells. So let's call out Jordan, because he called out Jordan a few weeks ago. Now he's calling out Phil Jackson. He called out a few other people in between. So yeah, this is about moving some units. This is my personal opinion, that Pippen's way of moving some units. And what better way to do it by trying to rewrite the narrative around one of the worst moments in his career, where he was where his teammates said he let them down, and he was highly criticized, and even Jordan had to come and pay him a visit to talk with him about being dedicated to the team. I mean, he actually refused to go into the game. So now this is a way of rewriting that narrative and saying it's a racial thing. Listen, Phil Jackson designed a play for Tony Kukoc, who is now a Hall of Famer.
Who hit the shot? Who hit the shot too?
Who hit the shot and won the game?
What do you say, Attorney? No, you're good.
Charge. Now let me say this to be clear.
Yeah.
I don't know if, just the same way I said about Bill, I don't know Phil Jackson personally. I don't know if he's a racist, but if you're going to charge him with racism, the evidence has to be stronger than that, Scott.
That's true. Attorney, what do you say?
Well, listen, Phil Jackson, and I'm not trying to say that every white person that hangs out with black people necessarily aren't racist, but I mean, Phil Jackson's been around. When you're in the NBA, you're around black people all the time. So if you're a racist, you're in the wrong place to be at. But that's not to say that they don't have them. Listen, he's been around for a long time with the Knicks, and then of course, being the head coach for the Bulls in the 90s, late 80s, or like 89 and early 90s and so forth. I have no idea, like Doctor was saying, whether he was racist or not, but it seems like he just designed a play that he thought would work for Tony Kukoc. Now, and you're talking about...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. But you're talking about a Hall of Fame coach, somebody who has gone on even after I want to say he was forced out from the Bulls by Jerry Krause, but going on to the Los Angeles Lakers and teaming up with Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal and bringing 4 other championships there. He's the winningest coach in NBA history, so he knows how to win games. So I can't go with Scottie on this one. I don't know what was said, but I mean, I know that Scottie had, like you said, if he's trying to push beer and liquor and so forth and books, there's no better way than controversy.
Yeah. And then I'll to tie this even into the first segment, there are some, as we said earlier, how they're trying to say what is taking place with our sister, Sha'Carri Richardson, was racism. She's being targeted. And then what Scottie Pippen is saying. So do these unfounded accusations of racist targeting and racist acts, do they take away from the real cries of racism being made by black people from whatever aspect of society that they're in? Go ahead, Brother Asad, then we'll come to you, Attorney Richard.
Well, I am under the belief that everything in the United States of America, race will play a part in a role. It is we know about functionalism. Racism was created as a function for the society. So for the society to function. So I definitely believe that anything when it deals with black and white, you're going to find some elements of racism or race. Let me not say racism, some elements of where race plays a part. Had our sister Sha'Carri Richardson been a white, blue-eyed, blonde track star, do you think she would have been suspended? I don't know. There's an argument or a question that can be presented. Now, do these kind of racial conspiracy theories when we see a very clear reason why certain things happen. In the case of Sister Richardson, the use of the marijuana. In the case of Scottie Pippen, where we have a Hall of Fame basketball coach designing a play for a future Hall of Famer to win a game. I don't know if those things actually diminish real claims of racism, because it's not going to diminish the death of George Floyd. It's not going to diminish the death of Mike Brown or Sandra Bland. So when there are real cases of racism and violence against Black bodies, we're able to point those out. What it does, it's almost like it trivializes as sometimes the individuals who participate in the defendants. When I see individuals on social media claiming that it was racism behind Sha'Carri Richardson, I just look at them and say, well, you haven't really examined this as well as you should have, and that kind of initial reaction that you're having is understandable, because we have dealt with so many racial issues in America that the first thing that we're going to think about is how did race play a part in this decision.
What do you say, Attorney Rashad?
I think that I think of the story of the boy who cried wolf. How many times the boy cries wolf and cried that the wolf was out there, the villagers would come out and it was a lie. And then when the wolf really came out and he cried again, he did it so many times that the villagers didn't believe it. Certainly, everything in America, the racial element is always present, as the good doctor has mentioned. The racial element is always present, but is it evident? Do we have proof of that? I think that when you make these accusations, they have to be proven. I think you have to have proof of it. And I can't blindly say it would be racism necessarily if something happened. Now, do we have examples where there are double standards for different people? We just talked about Dr. Cosby, how he lost all of his awards, yet Woody Allen and Roman Polanski, who have been accused of sexual misconduct, and actually Mr. Polanski pled guilty, he is still allowed to direct movies. In fact, he was not removed from the Academy Awards, the academies, until the day Bill Cosby was convicted. And they did remove both of them, only because to make it look like it wouldn't be racist, but it was racist, since you kept Roman Polanski there for so long. So we do have examples of that, but we also have to be cautious when things happen, because sometimes it may not be just that, in that situation. And I think Scottie Pippen, I don't know what happened in that huddle or whatever, but it's a stretch, bro.
It's definitely a stretch. But I want to say, if you don't mind, Brother Willie, we talked.
Go ahead.
Well, when the brother said the brother that cried wolf, right, and the story of the young man who cries wolf and nobody believed him. We've had the wolf on tape. When they killed Brother George Floyd, we had the wolf on tape, and you still had many white Americans who did not believe us. So that's why I say that racial dynamics will always play a part when it's the black and white in the United States.
Attorney Richard, any closing words? Go ahead.
With George Floyd, I mean, there were white people out there standing, even calling him out too. So it was just so evident and blatant, like, we can't support you on that. But we saw even in court, people stay on code. I mean, George Steiny Jr., the youngest person executed in the United States, even though they overturned his conviction post-mortem, the family of the victims still supported the conviction, even though they know he didn't get a fair trial. So they stay on code with things. And but like I said, Scottie Pippen, I don't know if I could co-sign it. So
yeah, and we thank both of you all for being here. And I think in closing on this, one of the things I realized in this discussion about Sha'Carri, the sister who runs track, and even the Scottie Pippen, like, it's important for us to get the facts as a people before we just jump out there, because people was talking about, well, look at Michael Phelps, and here Michael Phelps, as you pointed out, Doc, that it was past the Olympics, that he never tested positive for marijuana, but he still ended up getting suspended, still lost endorsement deals, still couldn't participate in the World Athletic Games or whatever that has. And then, in an interesting thing, listening to Bill Cosby's attorneys on different news agencies, even the sister Monique Presley, they were bringing, I was like, wow, man, the media didn't say that. Like they were saying, like Bill Cosby said this in the deposition. And people who read the deposition was like, first of all, he didn't say that. And I'm like, man, you've had so many news agencies keep repeating it. So in closing, for our people that are watching, get the facts, do your reading before you jump out there and get involved in passionate. You take a position that's based upon your passion and you don't have all of the facts. Thank you, gentlemen, man. I appreciate it. I thank you for filling in at the last moment. Our brother, attorney Gavin Richard, because Dr. Abdul Halim couldn't make it. Thank you, brother Asad, Dr. Asad, for your commentary, man. May God continue to bless you all. And I want to thank all of those who are tuning in, who has been tuning in, want to keep building the audience here, because this is a news network. Make sure you tune in tomorrow at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you can see what NNV is all about. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you also subscribe to NNV on all of our social media at NNV News. Make sure you subscribe also on YouTube. This is your brother Willie Muhammad. Thank you for tuning in to National Network View News. Peace.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.